Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2021 Week 12 NFL Best Bets, the gold, the silver, the bronze, coming at you. I do want to let you know to play in the best tournament on DraftKings, the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League. Link is down in the description. Free max, $15 to play, rake free. So go do that. Sub to the newsletter, sub to Mayo Media Network, and smash the like button for the episode. Additionally, if you want to get into a draw to win one of three prizes for $100 cash, all you need to do is go on to Apple Podcasts, rate and review the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. 5 stars, something nice, and Twitter handle or email or some way that I can contact you, and you will be good to go on that. We'll be announcing the winners next week. Rob Pizzola had a bad Thanksgiving with his Dallas Cowboys coming up on the short end, and Cam Stewart had too good of a Thanksgiving. He is out sick today, so playing the part of Cam Stewart with the picks that Cam has sent us. So Cam's picks are still locked in. Is Geoff Fienberg. What's going on?
What up? This is probably a bit of a letdown for most since Cam is the best, but here I am. And I would say I got some of my breaks in this industry, having to pitch in for Cam or fill in for Cam, or I'm going to need you a little on the mic today, Geoff, from Cam. So here I am, baby. Let's go.
Rob, producing that show back in the day, like, what was it like if Cam had to bring in Geoff to do some of this stuff? What's that like as the producer?
So what Geoff is saying right now is not an exaggeration. This happened literally 10 minutes before every single show, where Cam would start to come down with some sort of illness, say that he didn't feel well, and that someone else is going to have to jump on the mic for him. And we'd have to be like, Cam, you're the host. Like, it's okay. Like, we'll help you through it in the talk back. He's like, no, Geoff, Hainzer, you guys are going to really have to get on the mic today. I'm not feeling so good. But I'm not exaggerating, every single day of the week that this happened. The one time I actually mentioned it to Cam before the show was the angriest he ever got at me in his entire life. He, like 10 minutes before the show, he's like, Pizzola. I'm like, I know, Cam, you don't feel well today. He's like, what did you say to me? What did you say? And he just stormed over to my desk and completely lost. The only time Cam really ever lost it on me. But yeah, it was a shit show. That's the best way to put it, Pat. On a daily basis, it was an absolute shit show.
Was this a product, Geoff, of you having to go get him all that Chinese food all the time before the show?
No, well, I think put in a rule where he can no longer eat Manchu Walk, which is essentially like Canadian Panda Express for context, because it would just knock him out. It would just knock him out. And understand, like, we don't go on the air till 4. So you get hungry, he wants to eat a full lunch, and you don't think it's going to knock you out, but you eat that. And as you get closer to 4 o'clock, like, it just hits you, and you just become so fatigued, I guess. Missiles of Pepsi. So yeah, even like Whopper Wednesdays were more encouraging than the like boxes full of Chinese food.
Well, it was a good Thanksgiving betting for me, and I know that you guys were hard on the Bills. Unfortunately, Pizzola, I had going against your Dallas Cowboys really turned out well for me. And in what has to be some of the freest money that has ever been given out was that Jimmy Graham over-under prop at 7.5 yards. Did the books not realize that he was playing in this game? I don't quite understand how that happened, but are you worried about the Cowboys yet, Pizzola?
I'm not. I mean, listen, let's call it out for what it is. They played a bad game yesterday, but still got pretty hosed by the officiating. Like, that was a brutal game to watch, even as a neutral fan, even though it went to overtime and it was close. All the pass interference penalties, especially the one in overtime. Like, I understand if you don't look back at the ball, but like, if you don't make contact with a defender, I don't know how you get called for defensive pass interference. I'm not worried. I mean, like, every team is kind of going to have a stretch over the course of the season where they look like they're in rough shape. If they go to New Orleans next week and end up losing on Thursday to potentially Trevor Siemian again, then I'll be a little bit worried. But as it stands now, I still think that they have a top 5 offense in the league. The defense, while it can be hit or miss, still generates some turnovers, pretty good on underneath stuff. So I'm not going to concern myself too much with it right now, but next week will be very telling, I think.
And
No
you get-
favors for the AFC West. Like, come on, man.
Because we beat the Chargers.
They go 1-3 against the AFC West. If I come out on the short end of it, they will have probably played a pivotal role. They've lost 2 home games as touchdown or more favorites to the AFC West.
I don't know what it is. We did the show a few weeks ago where I had Denver as one of my plays. I think it was like my first silver pick win of the entire year in week 9 or whatever. It was a horrible run for silver picks. But yeah, I mean, it's like Dallas got way out ahead of the division very quickly. I don't want to say that motivation is a factor or non-factor, but who knows? They rested Prescott for a week in which they actually ended up winning, but he was rusty coming back off of the bye as well. I don't know. It's just a very weird team to gauge right now. But I think ultimately, like if we're talking about NFL teams in terms of stocks, like this would probably be your buy low point on Dallas going forwards. I don't think it really gets much worse than this. I hope it doesn't get much worse than this, but like that's how I just feel about the team right now.
Well, taking a look back at last week, it was a kind of the struggle bus for the 3 of us on this show. I was 1-2. Finally lost another gold pick, so it drops me to 9-2 on that. But fortunately, Rob, you continue your good gold picks with Washington +3. Cam, Cincinnati -1. That came through. Cam, silver pick, Houston +10. That came through. So he was still 2-1 for the week. So we were right around 500. And it ends a really nice run for us for like 3 weeks in a row on this show. So now with Geoff here, but still giving out Cam's picks, I think we need to get back on track. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, we got like hosed by some injury news last week as well. I think the Saints injury report turned out to be a lot worse than we anticipated when we were talking on Friday. And then I think my bronze pick was Baltimore -4. And obviously like Lamar Jackson had the worst cold in the history of the world or something. Like how do you not practice Wednesday, Thursday? You come back to practice Friday, like full practice, good to go. Shows, I don't know. He had like some sort of weird, he's had some weird illnesses this year. I don't know what's going on with that guy. Immune system, not that strong, I would say, but hopefully we don't get a situation like that this week.
I think he'd have been like that kid in elementary school I've been so jealous of. Like he'd get so sick. It'd be stay home all the time from school. I mean, COVID's its own thing, but this guy, yeah, I don't know. And like, he's not injury prone, but he's got like a weak tummy.
I think that he just had I could barely talk or breathe last week on this show. I just think he had what I had, Pizzola.
You think like he just toughed it out like you did on Friday practice, and then he's just like, no, I can't do this.
Well, I don't know, because like throughout the course of the week, like some days I would feel fine, and then when I woke up on Friday morning to record with you guys, I was like death and like couldn't do anything for 2 days, and then I got better all of a sudden. So I think that's where he was at.
It's very possible. Like I really strongly feel like the Ravens were the right side last week. That's the only reason I bring it up. They still won the game against Chicago by 3 points, even though they, and we had them as 4-point favorite. I have to feel like Lamar Jackson would have made some sort of difference over who started, like McSorley. I don't even remember who
it was. It was Hunley.
No, was it? I don't remember. It was so horrible. I didn't watch the game. Like I didn't watch other than what appeared on Red Zone. I didn't see anything, but it was terrible. It's a terrible game.
It was Hunley from Utah, not like the old Hunley from UCLA that backed up Rodgers for a couple years.
Brett Hundley, Brett.
I know people were mixing them up like Sunday morning last week.
We don't like. I don't even really. I once Lamar was out, it was just a full depression mode because I actually bet on that game with my own personal money as well. I'm not just giving out picks for the sake of giving picks. I had like some pretty sizable bet on the Ravens. So when that kind of stuff happens, you just like kind of try to turn your brain off from everything that's going on and just pray for the best. And unfortunately, that I now hold a grudge against Lamar, even though I shouldn't. But like that's just the way that betting, goes. And on to this week, I guess.
Well, let's get to the gold picks. All lines you can find from the show on DraftKings Sportsbook. Go play on DraftKings Sportsbook. There's even a promo offer, DOP, for our friends at the Dogger Pass podcast. You deposit like $5, you get like $100 or something like that. Whatever it may be. Just if you sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook, use code DOP, you will be good to go. This one sucks because I bet this number earlier in the week at 2.5, and now I'm looking at DraftKings Sportsbook, and it's 3.5. I don't know if I love the 3.5 is the problem. But I really like the Bucs to beat the Colts this week. And, there is a huge difference between 2.5 and 3.5, but I still just kind of think that the Bucks beat the pants off them in this. I think they're a significantly better team. I think this is a case of Buccaneers are sort of out of sight, out of mind at the moment. People kind of forget how good they are, where the Colts are the team right now, especially in the AFC, them and the Patriots, where every time that we've seen this so far this season, like, here's the trendy team. Oh, is this a Super Bowl contender? Look at all the teams that they beat, that they just come out and lay an absolute egg the next week. Like, wasn't Cincinnati the 1 seed like 3 weeks ago in the AFC?
Yeah,
There
it was like a more than 3 weeks ago. But yeah, I think that the Bengals for a while were the number 1 seed. Yeah.
There was a run, as I spoke about on our show, Pat, for about like 5 weeks, from weeks like 3 to 9, maybe more, where a new team up until Tennessee got the 1 seed would get the 1 seed in the AFC. It was very much like, I'm not even a college basketball fan, but it would be like this thing where teams get into the 1 spot, then they would like instantly lose. And the Chargers, Bengals, Ravens, Bills, everyone was a part of it. It's been that weird carousel till Tennessee has kind of grabbed it, but we'll see what happens Sunday.
So the 2.5 would be my gold pick, but that seems to be no longer available. I know you can find it at 3 in some places if you do go look around. So I'm going to pivot off my gold pick here, guys. And Geoff, I'm going to take the my second favorite game, which was my silver pick, bump it up to gold, which I know that you gave out as your super lock on my show. I like Carolina -2 at the Dolphins. Here's a fun fact about the Dolphins. They're not good. So Carolina should have no problems in this one. I think this just reeks of a 23-10 game to me. It's a really bad matchup for what the Dolphins defense does well, and trying to take away what the Panthers do well, because those things just don't really mesh whatsoever. So I like the Panthers here, and I know you do too, Geoff.
Yeah, I gave them as my super lock on the week. You kind of did a great sell job on that show, but it is strictly matchup based. In Miami, they give up the most quarterback pressures in the entire league. Carolina, with a very young defense, like, they can attack and they can cause a lot of problems there. My one concern is Carolina giving up nearly the second most pressures in the league this year, but I don't think Miami can take advantage of it the way that Carolina can, that mismatch as well. Miami being hyper aggressive on the defense, little dink passes from Rule to McCaffrey or more kind of sets up perfectly, as you said, far more concise than I did, Pat.
Yeah, it's just really the playmakers on the Carolina side of the ball. Like, they have so many explosive, make one guy miss and they're gone type players. And especially when you have that dual threat of Cam in the backfield, where you're going to have to put someone on him. Like, the Dolphins' run defense is pretty good, but we've seen running quarterbacks kind of make a mockery, really, of a lot of these really good run defenses. That's sort of the cheat code against them. And the spot where you want to take advantage of Carolina is on the ground. And Miami just doesn't run the ball. They can't run the ball.
Pat, I don't know if you installed some sort of spyware on my computer or something, but I woke up this morning and I dropped Tampa Bay from my gold pick to something lower because of the line, and I elevated Carolina to my gold pick for this week. So we are unanimously in agreement. I don't know. We've had some good runs and bad runs on the unanimous agreement this year, but like, first of all, I think this is the game that Tua comes back down to earth. Like, he's benefited immensely from playing the Falcons, the Jags, and the Jets in 3 of his last 4 starts, which are 3 of the worst 4 DVOA pass defenses in the entire league. You guys mentioned it, like, the Carolina defense, it's a different beast. They blitz a lot. They generate a ton of pressure. And for me, I look at Miami's best weapons, Mike Gesicki. Okay, well, Shaq Thompson's the best cover linebacker in the entire league this season. Carolina is number 1 in success rate allowed against tight ends. Jalen Waddle. Has anyone seen Stephon Gilmore's numbers since coming over from New England? He's played 4 games. He's only been targeted 6 times, and he's given up 3 receptions. Like, I think Carolina has defensively, like, the perfect personnel for this Miami offense. And then, like, we haven't even talked about Cam Newton yet. I faded Carolina with my gold pick last week. Like, Cam didn't play poorly. That was more so that Taylor Heineke actually had a really good game. You know, Cam wasn't great, but he was a step up from what we saw last season. And Geoff just hit the nail on the head. Like, Miami blitzes a ton. This is like one of those dink and dunk games. Get the ball into Christian McCaffrey's hands really quickly. Let him do some work. And I just don't think the Miami defense has an answer for that. They're not going to change their style. They blitz heavily. It doesn't matter who they play. And this is a great team to drop the ball off to the running back whenever they're pressured. So I love the matchup advantage for Carolina on both sides of the ball. I think this game should be Carolina -3. And when you're getting -2, that's very good value on a Friday in the NFL. So I like the Panthers.
Why is it only -2? Who's betting on the Dolphins here?
Well, like I said, I think Miami's perception, like the perception of Miami's potentially skewed a bit just based off of like some recency bias and the opponents that they've faced. I don't know who's going to bet Miami, but Carolina lost last week in the first game that Cam Newton was back. The average fan might just think like, oh, the Panthers, like they're not very good. I still think that there's a pretty sizable difference between these two teams. And on top of it, I think one just matches up very well with the other.
All right, so Geoff, acting as Cam, can you give us your gold pick, please?
Yeah, as Cam, my gold pick is going to be the Giants against the Eagles this week. And I guess I could pull from the argument you made as it pertained to Indianapolis being this hyper trendy team. You listed a couple. The NFC trendy team at the moment, I guess, would be Philly and Minnesota. Like they're sort of hitting their ceiling. I would argue the love for Philly, though, has hit its ceiling. And the Giants off Monday night is a total buy low scenario. I know, just like knowing Cam is all about this in a nutshell. And not to say it's a bad strategy. He's buying a team at its low point versus a team on its ceiling. And I believe he got a big point or half point on the advance line here. Well, what did the Eagles prove? They beat, as Rob pointed out, like a really shorthanded Saints team. And we're sort of seeing the Saints hit a wall in many ways with injuries and in other respects. And Jason Garrett's gone. Maybe that's just new life for the Giants, who I'm crazy. Maybe I'm one of the crazy people that likes the playmakers in New York. Should be a really fun game. Retiring Strahan's number. Cammy's taken the 3.5. Also, the Giants, they've played really well against, they've really struggled against like better teams, full on better coaching staff, teams where they're really outmanned, out-assed talent-wise. But when you sort of match them up in a team in their talent scope, they've competed all season long. So Cammy's on the Giants plus 3.5.
I would like to have you do a giant sound effect, please.
Roar. Like he uses roar for everything. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, roar. I was thinking lion. No, he's gonna roar.
He roars for everything. It doesn't matter what.
Fi fo fum.
That's pretty good. Cam would never do that, but that's really good. Cam does bird sounds and roars. That's what he does.
Horse sounds.
Well, he does the horse sounds. I forgot. He does the horse sounds as well. Actually, you know what? Maybe that would have been out of the Cam playbook. He hasn't picked the Giants this year, so we don't know. We haven't gotten to see it, but maybe that's something that he will adopt. That was a pretty good one.
Like the Giants are straight up bad. I actually made this pick on the spread pick show. I don't think it's going to get a cent of my real money, but the way that you kind of described it is what I assume Cam sees. It's kind of what I saw in it too. Like, I have no idea if Philly is good or not. When you look at things like DVOA or Pro Football Focus, like they do pass. They're inside the top 10 overall as a team. And getting the offensive line completely healthy again has really coincided with their rise up. I do worry about, it's really the hook in this game. These division games, Rob, I feel like we see them all the time. And I don't want to quote Cust as having made a good point here, but the upgrade from Freddie Kitchens from Jason Garrett, people forget that Freddie Kitchens was actually like a good coordinator the year that he was a good coordinator. He was just a terrible head coach. Maybe he can figure something out with his offense. Yeah,
the 3 games that were on my short list have already been selected this week, or at least talked about. The Giants were going to be one of my plays. So, I mean, if we want to just move to silver picks, the Giants are my silver pick this week.
Okay.
And this isn't going to be the most compelling case on top of what Geoff has said on behalf of Cam here, but I don't think this line should be 3.5. I mean, here's the thing about the Giants. Geoff hit home on it, but when they take a big step up in class, they get killed. It's happened against the Bucks, happened to the Cowboys, happened to the Rams where they got smoked. But when they play opponents that are more in their punching weight, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Panthers, they beat the Saints. They lost a very close game to the Chiefs, lost a very close game to Washington. I don't think that they're a dreadful team. And they looked horrible against the Bucks last week, but you have to remember that the Bucks blitz at a very high rate, the second highest rate in the NFL. And Daniel Jones, when he gets blitzed, it's like deer in the headlights. He doesn't really know what to do. Philadelphia doesn't blitz. They haven't changed this over the course of the entire season. They are the third lowest blitzing team in the entire league. They like to play coverage. That's what they do because their secondary is not great, and they don't want to get that secondary exposed. You got Darius Slay banged up. We don't know if he's going to play, but I just kind of feel like, aside from the number not being there, there's like an element of gut feeling here for me that Jason Garrett is gone, and he's just so bad at play calling and coordinating this offense that I feel like the Giants just come out with a much more effective game plan. Like, if you look at New York on paper offensively, even though they've suffered through like a ton of injuries this year, they should not have an offense that's this bad. And I do think Kitchens is a big upgrade. I think on a short week on a short week, he calls a better game overall, but I can't get to this number. I think it's like a recency bias on the Eagles where they're just become like the talk of the NFC, like Geoff mentioned, and I'm not buying it. I think this is a game that the Giants win outright. Personally, I will take the 3.5 points.
Oh, so Geoff, Cam Silver pick is Cincinnati -4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which you can get right now for a -110 at DraftKings Sportsbook. I feel like you're actually on the other side of this game, so I'm curious to hear this.
Yeah, I didn't really love either side. It's just I took the road dog, or I took the dog getting more than 3.5 in both AFC North games for our show earlier this week, thinking I think I'll come out level in that. I don't have a strong real money opinion on either of them. I can say that I do think in some respects how Pittsburgh played the last 20 minutes on Sunday night really flipped the perception of Pittsburgh heading into this game. Like, if that game ends with the Chargers winning by 14 or 17, like it kind of felt like it was set up to do, other than the Chargers being insane and driving me crazy, maybe the Bengals are far more popular than they are. But Pittsburgh may have created a mirage in terms of our perception of them. They just tied Detroit. So let's not remove, and the Chargers charged in classic Charger fashion. So let's not overrate anything they did. Well, the Bengals are nice road win in Oakland where they ran the ball effectively. Big AFC North game. The Bengals get to 7-4. This is a huge game for the Bengals playoff probabilities, I assume, as well. And the Raiders give up, the Steelers give up big chunk plays to running backs. We saw it with Eckler. Mixon probably do the exact same thing, friends.
They also have a terrible pass defense, and that just seems like something that Cincinnati is going to exploit. I actually really like Cincinnati in this game, and I think that the 4 is going to throw a lot of people off. Based on what you said about the last vision that people have about Pittsburgh is watching the end of the Sunday night game. It's like, oh man, is Pittsburgh back? And then no one really watched Cincinnati beat the crap out of the Raiders because everyone was watching that Kansas City and Dallas game that was going on at the same time. That maybe Cincinnati is kind of, they went through their little lull of having a bad month or bad 3 games in a row. And it seems like they're coming out the other side of it. Rob, the only big thing here is Pittsburgh has one of the best pass rushes in football, if they're healthy, and they seem to be. It's Cincinnati has a problem blocking. That seems to be the only advantage that Pittsburgh has in this game.
Yeah, it looks like TJ Watt is heading towards playing this week. They get Minkah Fitzpatrick back off the COVID list. Potentially Joe Hayden will play as well. We don't know. I think he was limited in practice. So there could be some reinforcements on defense. For me, I don't think the Bengals are very good. That's my opinion. I felt that they were a paper tiger for most of the year, and I still strongly believe that. Even the final score, I think, against Las Vegas last week was extremely misleading as they piled it on towards the end of the game. But the box score stats were very similar. And if you looked at that, just that box score and not that final score, you would struggle to see one of the teams blowing the other team out. Pittsburgh too, like this has kind of been the spot for them, notoriously under Tomlin, right? Like Pittsburgh is very much that it's like, it sounds really dumb to say it, but you just don't want to bet the Steelers when they're favored, and you kind of want to take them when they're underdogs. And if you've only done that under the Mike Tomlin tenure, you probably own like a private island off the coast of the Caribbean or something like that, because they always seem to cover in these types of spots. I don't have a strong opinion on the game. I don't really like either of these teams. Definitely, I can see why Cam likes the Bengals because the Steelers are what he would like. He brings it up on the show all the time, but the Steelers will be a publicly backed underdog this week. He loves to fade teams in those spots where everybody's looking at one team that they think has a chance to win. He'll happily go against that. So I can see that from his point of view, but I struggle with laying 4 points with Cincinnati, who's played an extremely easy schedule this year. I think that they're much worse than people think. I think the perception of them is that they're better than they are.
All right, so it's time for my silver pick, and I had the Bucks, then Carolina. I had to scrap the Bucks because of that point that went up. I still might end up going to the Bucks here for the silver one. So maybe we can do this now, of where I kind of throw out some of the games that are on my short list that I feel good about, but not great about. This usually works out in my favor here. Geoff, I probably shouldn't ask you this one, but I'm kind of digging the Broncos plus 2.5 now.
Yeah, sure. I should be a good game. I just think these are now the games the Chargers need to win. You look at the teams that have beaten the Chargers this year, the Dallas Cowboys, the Baltimore Ravens, really, really good football teams. At least we can say what you want about the Vikings. I don't think Denver is that. So I think it's guaranteed to be close and the Chargers lose or the Chargers win, because I don't think Denver's good enough to keep us from keeping it a game. That being said, I'm not as confident as I was in the 3 months I crave Denver. Like, I want to play Denver, can't wait to play Denver. But you look at that division, they control their own destiny and they have a huge hammer punch to throw. I don't know if they're good enough, but their next 2 games are against the Chargers and the Chiefs. Chiefs are on a bye this week. So in Denver's mind, in Denver's locker room, on their bye, in preparation, we win our next 2 games, we're in first freaking place. Crazy, but true.
Yeah, it's just the number. And now it's kind of like you bet it at 1.5, which I probably would have jumped on if I had saw it earlier in the week too. Then it went up.
I bet it before Sunday. I never do advanced line, but I've just been wanting to eat Denver for 3 months. We haven't played them once yet. Apparently, they have 5 division games left, which is insane.
Yeah, it's like Washington in the NFC East. If they can just run the table in their division schedule, they might win the division somehow, which is kind of insane to think. They're not going to do it, but they could theoretically. I just like Teddy as an underdog, Rob. Yeah. Just straight up. Yeah, almost like you said about Pittsburgh. Teddy's just kind of that guy.
I get it. We know what the Chargers are going to do. It's likely they're going to play a close game. So when you are betting on a close, when you're betting a team that's likely going to play a close game, I'd be much more inclined to take the points than I would to lay them. And I know it's only 2.5, but there's actually so many games that land on 1 and 2 now, because of the PAT rules, teams going for 2-pointers more often. It's a way more valuable number than it used to be. Whereas, like, I think back in the day, I would be like, I kind of need to get a 3 here to bet Denver. 1s and 2s aren't dead anymore. So for me, it's a Denver or nothing type of game. I don't really know what we're going to get here. I think these are like 2 very high variance teams where I have little confidence in selecting a side here, but just based off of the track record of the Chargers, I'd say it would be Broncos or pass.
What is the spread if the Chargers, like in what we're saying, Pittsburgh was miraged maybe in a public perception?
Yep.
What would the spread be had the Chargers not charged in typical fashion through the finish?
Like if they had just won by like 14?
Yeah, if they just finished that game without the block punt and the pick at the 8.
But here's the thing, Geoff, like you talked about betting the advanced line of 1.5. This has already been adjusted up. Like the Chargers are getting a small boost from their win last week, even though it ended up being a close game at the finish.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And as I said in our spread show, Pat, seeing Roethlisberger comfortable in the pocket, like Teddy's great on 3rd down. He doesn't turn the ball over. We couldn't really make Ben uncomfortable outside of like 7 plays. Why would Teddy be any different, if not better? So yeah, I am less confident today than I was a week ago at the prospects of this game, especially off a bye. And Herbert has struggled the most against defensive gurus, which I guess is fair. But in the modern NFL, Fangio, I think, definitely counts as a defensive guru.
Yep.
I don't know if Denver still has the personnel, though, is the problem on defense between injuries and trades.
Chubb's
now.
50-50.
Yeah, and the front seven, they've been pretty battered all year long. And then obviously getting rid of Von Miller is not going to help their pass rush either. So, I mean, it's not the same Broncos personnel, but the Chargers defense right now they're giving up. It's bad. And they're giving up a ton. And
Rob, I was saying to Pat that it's so bad. Pittsburgh almost may have set the Chargers up for a horrific finish because teams would just run for 4 yards of play and the Chargers would live with that, trying to win a high leverage third down or hold you or whatever. Now teams, I think, watching the Pittsburgh take, you can just march any way you want, I think, on the Chargers. You don't need to just run for 4 yards. Go get 40.
Yeah. What's the situation with the Chargers? Like, is Asante Samuel playing this week?
He's had 2 concussions now in like 4 weeks. So I think they're going to just chill with him. Yeah, it's a bit of a,
because Denver's pretty deep at receiver too, right?
Yeah. And the Chargers got CFLers in the secondary right now. So it could be a problem.
The best bet from this game.
Sorry for Chargers radio.
No. Listen, you can tune into Feinbolt on Mayo Media Network for a more in-depth look.
I believe I was the first ever guest on Feinbolt, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, you might have been. Yeah, it's true.
The best bet in this game is Melvin Gordon anytime touchdown, just to trigger Geoff.
It's true.
But you know it's going to happen.
But he could also fumble at the goal line or maybe get carted off. You never know.
He could, but he could also score a touchdown, which he will.
Well, he's probably then a good bet for like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's true. Multiple touchdown score, something absurd. I could totally see Melvin Gordon just like ruining Chargers fans like mental health on Sunday. I could see it happening.
So I don't know if I have the utmost confidence in that, but the other games that I'm looking at right now are the Texans -2.5, the Jags +1.5 at home against Atlanta. Rob, where do you stand on the Rams and Packers game?
I like the Rams. I mean, you have a quarterback that's flat out telling you that he is injured and dealing with an injury that is affecting his play. We're speculating on Stafford's back. Well, no one really knows there, but I just think that the Rams are a pretty tough matchup for the Packers. I mean, in even the 3 games that you mentioned there, Pat, like, I'm completely opposite on the Jags Falcons. Like, I think the Falcons are the team that they stink, but whenever they face like the teams that are worse than them, they win. Yep. That's just like their MO for me. So I want nothing to do with the Jags. Houston and the Jets, you might be the only person with a rooting interest in that in the entire world. I think potentially Pat on Sunday as well. But yeah, I like the Rams a little bit here. I know that they've shifted to a favorite and you're kind of like losing a little bit of the line value that you would have gotten with them as a smaller underdog earlier in the week. But I mean, there's, like I said, just if we're valuing this game and we're trying to put a number on this game, I think this is a fair price if you made Aaron Rodgers a healthy quarterback. And he's just not at the same level that he seems to have been earlier on in the year, especially not in the Seattle game. He will improve over time because of it, but you're doing press conferences where you have to show your foot and stuff like that. It's just, I mean, maybe it's already baked into the market, but I feel like the Rams are the right side here.
Feels that way. Like Bakhtiari had that knee procedure again to kind of clean it up to get him ready for the playoffs. So the offensive line's not going to be at 100%. We just saw them struggle with Minnesota. I think we all think that the Rams are probably better, but at least not on par with where the Vikings are at. And they probably, although the Rams are another team, Geoff, that are like in a lull right now. So do they need to come out of this?
Yeah, and Arizona keeps making their move. I will say the Packers also suffered another huge season-ending injury on their O-line. So having to work in like brand new rotations when you're going to have to like put 2.5 bodies on Aaron Donald, not a good scene. The only thing I could defend the case of Rodgers and his health and the Packers here with is Aaron Rodgers is so that guy to like showing his foot. Like what? He's literally trying to like build up how hurt he is. So when he succeeds, it appears that much more Herculean in like a very Brooks Koepka way.
No,
but we know.
but I
we
think
know you're amazing.
I think that he
we
was
know
just.
you're amazing.
I think that he was trying to dispel the rumor that he had something called COVID toe. Which was reported.
Yes.
I don't know.
That was a real thing that was going around last week. He's like, no, just look at my foot. I have a broken pinky or a broken small toe.
He didn't want the woke mob to come after him again for any COVID related things. And I think Pat's right. He just wanted to, like, I don't have COVID toe. I have a legitimate foot injury. I will show you. That was, I've never seen anything like that before. I'm sure Rex Ryan liked it quite a bit with his foot fetish, but aside from that, it was a very, very, very weird thing to do.
Yeah, there was another thing too. I think it was, so he's showing his foot to show that off. Someone told, I think Ocho Cinco that Ocho Cinco was broke. So he just pulled up his online banking app and showed the guy how much money he had in a checking account. He's like, yeah, if my net value is $2 million, what do you say about this? So people are just, in your face, hey, you want to make false accusations about me? Here you go. Here's the proof. I like it. I like where people are going with this.
So do I. You got to put people in their place sometimes. There's a lot of keyboard warriors out there. Me and Geoff get this a lot every now and then. I like to just mute and move on. But every now and then I get some guy that he's just beyond muting and I got to put him in his place. And I don't like to do it, but I get angered. And good on Chad Ochocinco. Chad Ochocinco he actually follows me on Twitter. You guys don't know this, but I once had, Geoff will know this, but I once held a Guinness World Record in FIFA for the largest margin of victory against a computer opponent. And Chad Ochocinco watched this, and he was just DM'd me on Twitter. He's like, yo, man, I'll tear you up in FIFA. Let's have a game. And we really tried to make it work and get him in at the score to face me in FIFA. And he was playing for the Montreal Alouettes. They were going to have a road trip to Toronto. And of course, he got injured the week before, never made it to Toronto. So I never got to have that FIFA game. He probably would have smoked me. I will admit it. He plays a lot of FIFA, but he's a good dude. I'm glad he put a keyboard warrior in his place.
Why is it that when is it just because the guys that go to the CFL after the fact are either washed or they just legit don't care anymore? Because none of them, it's always your middling NFL player that goes to the CFL that turns out to be awesome. Not any of the actual names that go to the CFL.
No one goes to the CFL and becomes awesome. They usually just get awesome at the CFL and then go to the NFL.
They were
right?
Brandon Banks was a decent kick returner for Washington. He goes to the CFL. He's the best player of all time.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Because there are a lot of undrafted free agents or late draft picks that get cut and then they come to the CFL. That I guess is fair. I don't know.
I feel like they just go to the CFL at the end of their careers because they still want to play. It's nothing more than that. It's just no NFL team wants me anymore. I feel like I got something left to give. Maybe I'll prove myself and head back to the NFL. Something like it's just guys that want to play. Don't want to give it up.
My memory is more guys that are it's Chad Ochocinco, Ricky Williams. I remember Andre Rison came for a bit, and then many more in between. But I don't know.
I remember when Johnny Manziel ended up playing in the CFL for that short stint. I was on a bachelor party in Montreal, and he was at the same club that I was at. He was smoking cigs out front. It was hilarious.
He was such a good fade in the CFL. I mean, he was a good fade in his NFL, brief NFL career. But yeah, he's, man, I wish those lines would come back. I mean, people thought Manziel was going to be just suddenly tear up the league. Definitely, you need to be a certain style of quarterback to succeed in the CFL. The field is much wider. You got to be able to hit that quick out and have a lot of arm strength. And Manziel, that was a pretty big failure. And now he's divorced. Not that it has anything to do with it. I just saw the news article yesterday. Yeah, he's officially
divorced. His wife was posting some thought pics, letting people know she's open for business.
Yes, yeah.
But the CFL, I don't want to go.
Go ahead.
They have playoffs this weekend, and they don't even have lines yet. The games are still off the board.
Yeah, it's
the playoffs. It's Friday.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. This literally happened yesterday. My birthday falls on the Grey Cup this year, and my friends are like, why don't we do a Grey Cup birthday party for you? I'm like, guys, are we even friends anymore? Do you even know me? Like,
I'm
why would
surprised they're not offering to take you to Hamilton for the Grey Cup.
like there's no chance. First, they would know that they definitely know I'd be miserable in like some cold weather environment watching two teams I don't care about. But like I'm gonna be watching the end of the 4:00 NFL games. Like I don't really care about the Grey Cup. Anyways, I think we've talked a lot about the CFL.
No. I lived in Calgary for 1 year, and
I love it.
And I remember when the week that the Grey Cup was on, it was a Sunday night football game. It was Steelers Ravens. I think it was like 2009 or something like that. And people were like, "Oh yeah, like we're going to like watch the Grey Cup." I was like, "Why are you gonna watch the Grey Cup? You have probably the best football game of the week on right now. Like you would seriously watch the CFL over the?" I was so confused about I had to move from Calgary. It was just not my scene.
The West Coasters love it. Geoff and I, when we were working at Hardcore Sports Radio, we had a bunch of guys from the West who just come into town, like repping their CFL gear, and they had to get out to watch the games. And I get it. I guess we should feel like that in Toronto. It's just like the product for me isn't good enough for me to feel like that. So I never will. But yeah, the West Coast Canadians are just like, they might as well just relocate all the East Coast teams to 4 more spots on the West, and they probably do a whole lot better as a league.
Well, there are no East Coast teams.
I'm talking
Central. You mean
Central,
teams that are in the
yes.
middle of the country, which you call
Eastern time zone.
Oh,
teams is what it's a little bit confusing, but that's what I was referring to. Like Toronto to me is what I consider an East Coast CFL team because they play in the Eastern time zone.
Ah, yes, I see. Well, geographically, that would not be true.
No, it's not. It's definitely incorrect to say that from a geographic standpoint.
Yeah, I always enjoy when I would be in downtown Toronto. The Grey Cup would be in Toronto. I would just see all these people who looked wildly out of. You can always tell the people because they're just doing like the head up in the air, just looking up at all the really tall buildings, and they have starters jackets repping like generic CFL brand from 1972 or something like that. It's like, what is going on here? They make leather jackets for football teams? Didn't realize that.
Geoff, I don't know if you you have any recollection of being at some random CFL party in Toronto with me. Like maybe it was at like a downtown hotel. I don't even know what this was, but I'm just recalling all these CFL fans around me for a Grey Cup weekend, and I don't even remember what it was, but it's all coming back to me now.
What's weird is I don't know whether the schedule was off, but yeah, we were out. I think it might have even been the night of Butt Fumble. It was a Thursday night Grey Cup week. I think we watched games with a lot of people from out of town with Cam, and because Grey Cup weekend, they hoard on the city, and a bunch of like fans came in, and then we went to some party. And I don't want to throw the guy under the bus here because I don't know, but is this where like Cohen would tell people?
Oh, he was a CFL offensive lineman.
People like he's a retired CFL trying to pick up women, or even say like, yeah, I like played for the Bills a few snaps, like, and he's just some like aged late 30s, like, yeah. What a pathetic scene. But I remember the night, Rob. I remember the night.
It's all coming back to me. I definitely recall the Big E, who gave himself the nickname the Big E, by the way, Eric Cohen, going around to some party trying to pick up chicks by telling them he was a retired CFL offensive lineman, as if this was going to be what put them over the edge. Like, oh, this guy played, like literally made what, like 50,000. It had to have a second job, possibly. Like, no offense to CFL linemen, that's not what I'm getting at. But like if that's what your pickup line is, I think you need to take a step back and work on something new. Like it's not going to work.
But okay, after going to the Super Bowl, and maybe it's because I've been in the city 3 times when there's like this during Super Bowl week, versus I've been in a Grey Cup city I think 3 times as well. The fans of the team in the Super Bowl come to the city, like when it was Patriots Eagles, even though it was freezing in Minnesota, you didn't see a whole lot of like Vikings fans around. There was a bunch of Patriots fans. There was a ton of Eagles fans. But when it was
that's the thing in the CFL.
But everyone would come for the great. Yeah, I didn't understand.
It's just weird. It's a weird dynamic.
Everyone goes to the finals. Like it's this weird thing. But I guess like the league is so small and communal. Everyone goes to the Grey Cup, and they do have like. We were probably at some like shitty part. Well, no, there's like a lot of parties and events and like I think fun things that they do, but I don't know. And this year's is in a greaser town like Hamilton, so things will be getting greasy. And I told Hustler if he comes into town, I'll come get greasy with him. But
you're gonna go? You're gonna go? Will you be streaming the Chargers game from your phone while you're at the Grey
not
Cup?
to the Grey Cup, like on like a party on like a Thursday or Friday or something. I'm not going to the Grey Cup.
You would go to Hamilton for a party though?
It can not be that far. Not a party, but I told just let me. Yeah, I would head out there.
Just let me know that you're gonna be around, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm not gonna go, but it was nice talking to you.
You meet up at a Tim Hortons for a coffee or something in Hamilton.
No, that's not my scene either. But yeah, I don't know. We could have ended this conversation. CFL is like weird Canada culture. But I don't know. People from big cities don't really like it, I guess.
I assume it's a lot like high school football culture in like certain parts of America where like that's the biggest game in town, that in specific parts of Canada, the CFL is just the biggest game in town and like no one else quite gets it.
Yeah, they just like it's cold out. In Western teams in like America are seen as like soft and like their fan bases don't care. But in Canada, the Western CFL teams sort of have that like Northeast college NFL fan feel to them. Like they just like getting drunk outdoors and hanging out. Brewskis.
Well, it's much colder in Western Canada than it is on the West Coast of the United
but that's
States.
My point. That's why I made the comparison. They have this like Northeast football fan vibe to them in some way.
Do you think they have all these CFL parties, Pizzola, to give the offensive linemen who aren't in the game some extra bucks for being bouncers?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what this party was. Like I'm trying to remember specific. Like it was definitely a hotel downtown. It was like
a hotel
park, and we just went into like the conference room. And there was just a lot of CFL fans there. That's all I remember. And you're right, Pat. It was like different. I don't remember who played in the game. I couldn't tell you because all I can picture is jerseys of every single team at this event and a really long line for drinks. I remember someone passed out. Someone's girlfriend passed out. She was completely plastered. I might have been Cam's girlfriend at the time. I don't even remember the night well enough. Sorry if it wasn't Cam. I apologize. I know you're watching this after the fact. You're going to yell at me or whatever, but I think it was Cam's girlfriend passed out. Cohen's telling people he's an offensive lineman. It was just a shit show of an evening. And I don't like, it was like just a weird night. Like the CFL brings out the weirdest people. That's all I can say about that.
So I will make Tampa Bay minus 3.5 still my silver pick because I still think they win the game by a bunch. Again, I have it at 2.5. It's hard for me to be here and be like, hey, bet 3.5 when I'm not going to bet 3.5. I've already bet 2.5. I wouldn't bet it again at 3.5. That seems kind of weird, but I do think that they cover that number. So I will give it out as my silver pick. Bronze pick, Geoff as Cam. Have fun with this one. Although, you know what, Geoff? I see you trying to take this like potentially fake half point here.
Could I do like I think I know what this is. Could I do a Cam impression of how I think he would deliver this pick? All right, it could be horrible.
I like this pick too, by the way.
Okay. So this is the Titans, right? The fake half point is 1-7. Okay. That's the classic Cam, by the way. He's always going to get the number that doesn't exist. All right.
No, I actually went and looked at the site that I'm pretty sure the Cam uses, and it was +7 this morning.
Okay, fair enough. Like he has good intentions. Let's leave it at that. But he would roll it out like this. He'd be like, you know me, Pizzola. I'm a sucker for these big dogs. I can't pass up the Titans. Roar, roar, Titans +7. I'm going to tell you about my week, Pizzola. Billy the doorman called me. He told me the Pats are winning the Super Bowl this year. I went to the local Indian food store. Very nice lady working there. Even she's telling me Bill Belichick is the coach of the year. You know this, Pizzola. You know this. When everybody zigs, sometimes you have to zag. The odds makers, they could have made this spread 7.5, and everyone would be betting the Patriots. So you got to wonder if they know something because they set this spread to 6.5 or 7. They let everybody take that bait. Oh, fishing, taking that bait. And everyone's going to take the bait on the New England Patriots. I'm not taking the bait. Tennessee Titans +7.
That's pretty good.
That's a classic. I feel like that's exactly how he would have delivered it. Like, I don't do the Cam voice well enough, but the talking points, he always draws like some reference from his real life. So that's why through like the Billy the Doorman and the Indian food store and whatever, he likes to throw that into his picks. And he always likes to talk about when everyone goes one way, you got to go the other. And he loves to loop me in all the time. You know this, Pizzola. He acts like I know, like I'm on the same page every single time, but I feel like that's how he would have delivered it.
Well, you have to go too. I mean, you can go an alternate route with it. It's just like, Pizzola, you know this. We'll go that way with it.
You could.
Vrabel, he has Bill Belichick's number. We know. We've seen it too many times with the Tennessee Titans here, and they're big. Doug, you know I love the Pooches. So we have the Pooches. The dogs are going to be barking this weekend, as Geoff said earlier. Fee, fi, fo, fum. The Titans, the mystical creature, these Titans are coming through for us. But the big thing here is I was watching one of these shows, Geoff, this morning, murder mystery show. It was the Lorena Bobbitt murders, and she went in and she cut the dick off her husband back in the 90s, and it was just a scene. We know that Mike Vrabel has already threatened to do that. Think about what we have in store for Bill Belichick this weekend if Vrabel really gets his hands on him. So, Titans, +7. I found the point. It's fine. Don't worry about that. Woo! I don't have a good Titan sound, but I wish I could.
He would roar. He would roar for a Titan. He would 100% roar for a Titan. It doesn't matter. Like I said, like when he doesn't have a sound effect for somebody, he's going to make the roaring sound. Roar. And he does the hands. He makes sure he does the claws as well to make sure.
Their logo is like a sword. So maybe he would, yeah. I guess he doesn't have like a carving knife sound. Yeah, it makes total sense why Cam would like Tennessee. And this does feel like a typical game. I hate picking a side, although I did it with the Raiders, where I actually think they're going to cover but not win. Like, I really don't like doing that. But I do believe the Titans cover and the Patriots win. But I don't know, without AJ Brown, now Julio, like they're such a different team, and you're literally betting on Mike Vrabel's ability to cover spreads, which he is fantastic at. That's what you're betting on, like, because I don't see it on the 53s.
I think there's a lot of hype around the Patriots right now. A lot of people talking about this is going to, like, they're going to the Super Bowl again. Belichick, Brady Super Bowl, which, by the way, find me in a ditch or laying down on the 427.
I'll go to a movie with you or something. Like, yeah, I'm not watching that.
I'll lay down on the 401 if it's Belichick, Brady Super Bowl. I want nothing to do with that. But the reality is that, like, I just don't think this is, like, at some point the Patriots are overvalued and are going to come back down to earth. At least I believe that. I just don't think that this is necessarily the game because of just all the offensive weapons that are missing from the Titans. I mean, you take away Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, AJ Brown, I think, is not going to play this week. Like, it does not look good for him. He's not practicing. It seems like they're likely going to go forward without him. They just, like, it kind of reminds me of the Patriots are falling into a very good spot like they did with the Falcons last week with a bunch of injuries again. They're going to take advantage of a beat-up team, and it's going to create even like this bigger false perception of how good they are. But I don't know. This is not the week for me where I get on board with the Titans. I just think that the injury report is horrible. Like, it's very, very bad for them. And like, obviously we're talking about the full complement of weapons. It's a different story, but asking Tannehill to do damage on this defense, I just don't see it happening. So for me, it's a pass, but I can see why Cam wants to zig when everybody else is going to zag.
Who do you have as a bronze pick?
I'm taking Tampa Bay. And I liked the Colts quite a bit last week because of how they matched up with Buffalo. I think they match up terribly with Tampa Bay. Like, Jonathan Taylor ran for like 100 touchdowns last week because the Bills' rush defense is a paper tiger. They played nobody else this year with a pulse besides Derrick Henry. But the Bucs have had like a top 5 run defense going on several years now. Vita Vea's back practicing. Bruce Arians said this morning you should be good to go. I like their ability to shut down the Colts running game. And then it's on Carson Wentz to throw on an improving secondary. They got Sean Murphy-Bunting back last week. I've seen the Carson Wentz show play out many times before when he has to win the game for them. And, like, the only thing that mildly concerns me here is Tampa Bay's kind of been bad on the road this year, but It's not like they don't have a quarterback who knows how to win on the road, people. Like, guy has had a pretty decent career away from home. And the Colts just don't generate pressure. Third last in the league in terms of pressure rates. They're not very good in pass defense. That's a problem against the Bucs, who pass on 2/3 of their plays, the second most in the entire league. So, yes, it's been bet up from 2.5 to 3 to 3.5. But for context, the Colts went to Buffalo last week. They closed 7-point favorites or 7-point underdogs in that game. We're giving like roughly 1 to 1.5 points in home field advantage right now. But let's just say that it's even 1.5 points. So 7, you'd subtract 1.5 twice if the venue was being Indianapolis. Buffalo would have been roughly a 4-point favorite in Indianapolis last week. And now we're getting a number that's lower than that because the Colts beat them. And I think Tampa Bay is better than Buffalo. I think they're the best team in the league. I still think 3.5 is a valuable number. Buccaneers -3.5. Obviously, line shop, get yourself the 3. But for purposes of grading this show, I'm comfortable with the 3.5 as well.
And you can do that at betstamp.app if you're looking to shop for the best number, but -3.5 right now at DraftKingsSportsbook.com. And it's -105 to bet the -3.5. So you're getting a little bit of relief on that. I'm sure that will change in the next 20 minutes after we finish recording, but those prices do kind of jump up and down. The fact that it's at -105 right now, if they do take enough Colts money, I think at that particular book, you might just see an industry-wide shift back to 3 for a little bit, then see what happens there. I don't think it would get any lower than 3, though, do you?
I don't. I like all the early money was on Tampa here, driving this up to 3. I'd be absolutely floored if we saw a number come back down below 3 at any point.
So for my... go ahead, Jeff.
No, I love that case. And it's another one of those games, or the case that Rob made. And it's another game where it's like the environment, the dome probably better suits the Bucs style of play than it does the home teams.
I agree.
Clearly. Good point.
Yeah, it'd be like if the Bills played in Indianapolis, the Bills probably do better.
Yeah, probably.
Shred that secondary. The Colts don't have a good secondary. They can be passed on. And I like on paper, they're fine, but they just don't generate pressure. So, yep. I mean, I hope this is a big Brady game. Brady's that guy in my entire life, like 20 years where I've gotten him wrong more than right, which seems impossible. But I mean, if you just bet Brady for 20 years, you would have done pretty well. And I'm not going to stop now.
So I have the short list down to 3 here for my final pick, the bronze pick. I probably don't want to be flipping coins with the Jags game or the Jets game. I have no real lead, although I do like the Jags, their pressure rate. I think that is what is going to really cause a lot of problems for Atlanta in that game. But the Jags also can't score, so that's a problem. When it's a 1.5-point spread, you need them to win the game. Cleveland +4 in Baltimore. Niners -3 at home against Minnesota. Against Minnesota. But the big one that I was looking at, Washington -1 at home on Monday Night Football. Is there just a chance that Seattle might be the worst team in the league until Russell Wilson gets healthy?
There is a chance that they are legitimately bad, but I think we're at the point now where I'm like kind of
their floor, market floor.
Like we're talking about Washington being favored over Seattle. Like I can't even really believe we're talking about this now. And I get it because the Seahawks have been really bad. Who knows what Russ's situation is like? But it's like I personally, it's just like completely against my philosophy to play Washington in this game. I think this is a pure Seattle or nothing. Your other 2 plays, Pat, I mean, you make your own bronze pick, but I think the Browns at +4 at DraftKings is a very good price right now relative to the rest of market. And I do see this being a close game. The Ravens defense, I think, is very overrated, and they're dealing with a ton of injuries on the defensive side of the ball right now. You're always concerned with Baker Mayfield and whether or not he's healthy, but that seems like a pretty decent price with the Browns. And a lot of people are in love with the Vikings. I'm personally in love with San Fran going forwards. Anyone watching, if you can find 50-1 Super Bowl on San Fran, I would absolutely bet that. They suffered a ton of injuries on both sides of the ball to start the year. This Vikings team might be without their entire defensive line. I don't know if Everson Griffin's going to play. I hope
he is. There's no chance he plays, is there?
He
Right.
can't play.
Right. Okay. Listen, guys, I'm just saying
No, yeah.
it's okay. We can calm down here, but they're without their entire defensive line is what I'm getting at against a power run game with a San Fran good offensive line. I understand that the Vikings always play close games. I get it. So there's some sort of appeal in backing them there, but I don't think this is a great matchup for them either. So I much prefer your other two options, Pat, to Washington, which I just can't. Like I'm a math guy. I statistically model games. I just can't get there yet. I think that you could be right. It's very plausible that the Seahawks just stink. I think it's more likely just some element of recency bias there.
It may be, but I mean, if you go back and look at it, Washington's been kind of good for like 2 months now. And they were just, I mean, remember the games that we were betting on Washington that they weren't covering? It's like, man, they really should have won that game. And now all of a sudden, maybe just they did so poorly based on red zone opportunities for like 4 straight weeks, and then everything has kind of come up in their favor the last 2. So maybe things are equalizing a little bit, and they're not this good in terms of an offense. But they have not had any problems moving the ball all year long. They've just had problems scoring once they get close to the goal line. So even if they can do that on like 50% of their trips, they're not going to have a problem moving it on Seattle. And like it could just be a situation where Washington is maybe a little bit better than what their record had been. I mean, coming out of the bye, they beat the Bucks and the Panthers. They lost that game to the Packers and Broncos, 2 games that they probably could have won. They lost
Very
that game.
misleading.
Yeah, they lost that game to the Chiefs where that was tied at half, and they were terrible in the second half. I mean, they've beat the Falcons. If we think that the Seahawks are just a legitimately shitty team, Washington should beat them, and you're getting a pretty good number on it if that's the case.
See, for me, it's so hard with Seattle because they've looked so bad. But the first game back with Russell Wilson off the finger injury was when they got shut out against Aaron Rodgers against Green Bay. Last week, I've talked about this dynamic many, many times before, but Seattle's basically preparing for Kyler Murray for an entire week, and then they end up getting Colt McCoy. And I know Colt McCoy is not a good quarterback. He should still be able to do something defensively, but we've seen this happen so many times in the NFL this season that I really think that there's something there where you game plan for one guy, get somebody completely different, and you just don't look great. And you're making good points, Pat. Like Washington to me was an undervalued team for a long time because they did have good success rates and EPA per play, and they were just bogging down in the red zone. But I get to a point where I have to draw the line and be like, I don't think Russell Wilson should be an underdog to Taylor Heineke. And that's just kind of where I'm at there.
Okay, let's say Geno Smith was the quarterback in this game and not Russell Wilson. What would be the spread?
We could probably draw on past games to look at it, but we're probably looking at something like, based off the adjustment that was made earlier this year, something like Washington -6.
Are we certain that this version of Russell Wilson, who I'm pretty sure still has a broken throwing hand, is worse than, or better or worse than Geno Smith right now?
We can never be certain about anything. I'd say I think it's highly probable.
Okay.
95% sure that this Russell Wilson right now, with another week to recover, is better than Geno Smith. Yes.
Geoff, do you have a lean in this one?
It's so far away. Monday. Not really. I don't even remember what I picked on our show. And I think I joked, I don't even know if I'll be on the same side of it come Monday. It's a pick 'em Monday nighter. I would probably be leaning betting on the floor of Seattle, though, thinking this is the floor. But I see it from your end, Pat. Like there's a thought, and you're not the first person I've heard it from that it can get worse in Seattle potentially over the final month of the season.
Yeah,
it definitely can. Like Pete Carroll went to the podium after last week's game and he walked away because he was so frustrated with the questions. Then he came back like 5 minutes later and he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm not used to this. Like we don't usually lose type of, and it could have gotten to the point where it's beyond recovery for Seattle. Like they're trying they're trying to get back to the running game. That's not working. I get it. It just goes against my principles as a bettor. I mean, maybe you're right, Pat. Maybe this is not the floor for Seattle. Maybe there's potential for it to get so much worse. But if I'm talking from a pure probability perspective, I'd say the probability of it getting much worse than this is small. That's my my 2 cents.
I mean, they haven't scored in 2 games, and that touchdown last week, I swear, was set up by the ball being an interception that took it to like inside the red zone. Yeah. So they're totally out of sync. And I saw a thing that says Pete Carroll hasn't lost 4 straight games. I think going back to his time, not even the Patriots, the Jets. Yeah. He was the coach of, like, in USC. So yeah, he's clearly like, I don't even know what this is.
I just feel like this is still only -1 because
you just got to win the game.
Oh yeah, you just have to win the game. But this line would be so much bigger. Like, Russell Wilson gets a lot of credit for being Russell Wilson, which he should. But if he's not actually healthy Russell Wilson right now, I feel like Seattle's still getting credit in this spot where they shouldn't be getting it. Like, they're a bad team. Like, just even take out Russell Wilson. Like, their defense is bad. They have no offensive line. They have 2 awesome playmakers, and no one can get them the ball. They have no running game. It just, all that said, I'm going to take San Francisco -3. Although the move is probably Cleveland +4, because that's just such a stinky, like, as Cam would point out, such a stinky game. It feels like a field goal game. I just don't know if I have the guts to put it in here.
Yeah, I think, like, what is there really like a whole lot separating the Browns and the Ravens? I guess it's the concerns about Mayfield, right? Because the Browns, for a couple weeks in a row, they barely beat the Lions and they got smoked by the Patriots. So I get it. And like, I don't want to say you always have to treat NFL teams like stocks, but like, in the long run, is Cleveland going to have a lower point than what they're at right now over the course of the year? It's probably not going to be the case. Like, this is a spread that if these teams have played like a month ago, we're probably looking at Ravens 2.5 or something like that. Has much changed? I don't know that a whole lot has changed. And also, we got to talk about, like, Lamar Jackson did miss a week with an illness. If we look at quarterbacks that have missed a week of action this year and then came back afterwards, they've all stunk. Like Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers. We've had some really stinker performances from these guys that have had a week off in between. So I don't think that can be dismissed either.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I mean, if he's not actually sore and it was just like a body illness, then I would like be less concerned about that. But I'm with you on that game. You, in an AFC North game at +4, you have so many outs, from winning it up the board. From winning it outright to taking all those 4 points up the board. Classic playoff implication AFC North game. I'm taking 4 points.
Oh, here we go. San Francisco 60-1 to win the Super Bowl. Let's do it.
Ooh. I think, listen, obviously this is very unlikely to happen. People have to understand, if you're betting at 60-1, then you need them to win the Super Bowl 1 out of every 61 times in order for it to be a worthwhile bet. I just feel like the 49ers are kind of coming into a zone. Like, remember how high the preseason expectations were of this team? And also look at Jimmy G's numbers when George Kittle is in the lineup versus when he is out, and they are substantially different. So I just feel like the 49ers, they could be that team that sneaks into the playoffs, and I could see them winning road games in Green Bay or against the Rams or whoever else, Dallas potentially, that they might play. Like, this is a team that can do damage.
And they should be able to potentially sneak in. Like, they have a run coming up. Like, they go Vikings, Seahawks. I mean, if I think the Seahawks are bad, which I kind of do. So you have the Seahawks at the Bengals, probably a toss-up. Then you go Falcons, Titans, Texans before you get to week 17 against the Rams, where the Rams might be locked into the 5 seed. They might be locked into the 1 seed. Who knows what's going to be happening with the Rams there? But they should be comfortably in the playoffs in week 17. That I do think that the Niners can sneak in. Like you said, if they're full health, I mean, this is the same team that went to the Super Bowl basically 2 years ago when they were at full health. So they can most definitely do it.
And you also don't have to, I know you're talking to the larger audience, but 2 guys that love making outright golf losers on a weekly basis, you don't need to explain that the 60-1 bet will probably lose to this guy.
Just for the larger audience, like, I don't need the YouTube comments after the fact of like, way to go, thanks Pizzola.
Couldn't even beat the Vikings.
Exactly, right? Like that's what I'm trying to preface, like trying to explain what makes this a valuable bet, not necessarily that it's a guarantee to win, because it definitely is not.
Rob Pizzola guarantees the San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl at 60-1. Take out a mortgage, go put it on it right now. That's what you said. That's what I heard, at least.
As long as you don't tweet that, Pat, because then it's going to get a lot of impressions and stuff like that, and it'll live on in history. But if they don't win, we could just swipe this episode right under the rug, like Cam does with like the eggs that break on his when
So I'd have to leave it there for another 24 hours, then get rid of it.
True. You have to actually let it soak into the rug first, so that you can clean it 20. I still don't understand the thought process behind that, but it seems to have worked for him. So I'll give credit where it's due.
Did you catch any of this cuss stuff this week about him eating over the sink? Do you eat over the sink?
I don't. I never have. I don't understand. And then like Cam came in right away and he's like, who hasn't eaten over this? I eat like, but Cam's thing was like, oh, okay, in between shows, I pop like a beef patty in the microwave and eat it over the sink. Okay, I get that. But like for a sit down meat, like if you're eating a meal, like your dinner or whatever, no, I don't eat over the sink. I didn't even know that's a thing. Like I've seen it in like maybe The Simpsons, like cartoons or something like that. I didn't know that was a real life thing until I heard Cuss say it. And the thing that gets me about Cuss is like he's in disgust of the other people who don't do this, as if they're like they're the weirdos. Like, you've never eaten over the sink? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, and I'm like, it's very triggering for me. These are triggering events. But yes, I did hear it. And it's not something that I do. No, I eat at my dinner table. Sometimes I'll eat in front of the TV, sit on a chair and eat, like if it's a meal that's amenable to doing so. But for the most part, I eat like a normal person.
So did you know that today, November 26th, 2021, I know that Geoff knows this, I don't know if the viewers know this, is the International Association of People Who Dine Over the Kitchen Sink. It's Sinky Day. This is a real thing, Pizzola, that we found. We entered this world after Cuss said this, and this is all real stuff.
But there's like, nowadays there's a day of the year for everything, right? Like, I see this on Twitter all the time. There's always like some trending hashtag, like, you know, I don't know. I can't even think of something stupid off the spot right now, but like there's stuff like this that happens on a regular basis. So it could be like 5 people in the world that do this, and it becomes a thing just because of the access to internet and social media now. I'm still not believing that this is a real thing, that a large majority of people do.
I'm still of the belief most people inferred like meal as like snacking or something. I polished a bag of chips over the sink. I've eaten a pastry like over the garbage like quickly. But Tim literally explained eating, and this is gross to begin with, but how he would eat like full on like hungry man meals over the sink. Like, how do you even balance that?
I don't know. Like, maybe he does that because the hungry man's come in like that container where like you can spill easily, right? You know what I'm getting at?
But it's in like a container like my kids' plates are divided up, Pizzola.
Yeah, but sure, like those green beans, like you try to scoop it with a fork out of the hungry man container, I could see how they could fall. Maybe you want to, excuse me, dying here like Pat last week.
Yeah, whatever. Get a placemat. Sit at your table. Put on your Fox News, Tim.
If you're eating over the sink, it's a time thing, right? It has to be a time thing, because like it's like I'm in a rush. I just got to scarf this down. I don't have time to put it in a plate, clean up, or whatever. So Cam's logically makes sense to me, right? You know, I finish a show. I got another show to do in 5 minutes. I got to scarf down this Jamaican
Cam will even come out at a commercial and like wolf half of his whatever's sitting at his desk over thing. You've all like, Pat, you've done live TV, Pizzola, you've done live programming. Like, that's not what we are talking about.
But
it's not what we're talking about.
The way that Cuss described it, it wasn't so much a time thing, because I do get that part. But Tim was like, yeah, I don't want to clean a plate. Like, don't you have a dishwasher?
I don't need, I'm getting more agitated with this conversation as it goes on. Like, yeah, that's not a valid reason. Like, especially if you do have a dishwasher, like I can understand, okay, if you actually have to wash your plates by hand, you don't own a dishwasher. okay, maybe like I would still eat at the table, me personally, but there's some people who just don't want to go through the process of having to clean dishes regularly. I get it. But if you can just pop it in a dishwasher afterwards, like you don't even have to rinse. Like these dishwasher detergents are so good nowadays. You don't even have to rinse the plates anymore. You could just throw it right in there. So there's like nothing stopping you. I don't know. I feel like he just kind of, I mean, Cuss is a weird dude, to each their own, but yeah, it's not for me. I mean, I like to sit, have my drink with me, fork and knife. And when I'm done, stuff goes in the dishwasher very easily. And that's it.
Geoff, we'll save this for Wednesday's spread show. However, Tim talked about how he cooks a grilled cheese sandwich while we were all together last night, and probably was being yelled at as loud as people could by 5 separate people in the room at one time. It was pretty hilarious.
Wait, how do you mess up a grilled cheese sandwich? Like you just put butter on both sides and put it into a hot pan?
No butter involved in this.
Oh my God.
He's got a pull up Pizzola on his.
Tell me this guy's using like vegetable oil or something like that.
Or he was just spraying the piece of toast with or piece of bread with Pam and putting it in.
I honestly don't understand, man. I don't understand. I don't get the guy. I won't discriminate. It works for him. He's happy in life. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, it's just the most simple thing you could possibly make. Like aside from putting like peanut butter on or jelly on bread, you got to just put the cheese in, butter both sides, couple minutes in a hot pan. That's it. Like it's, oh my God, what's better to cook? Olive oil. Oh my God. Olive.
Hey, in his mind, he won the poll because he got over 5%. It was 5.1%.
Sorry, people use mayonnaise as well.
Yeah, that was a big. Cheese? That was a big like. We even noticed
that makes more. Yeah, that's I've never seen that, but that actually makes more sense than oil.
Oh
no.
I think listen. None of these. I'm so conditioned in my brain to use butter for a grilled cheese or margarine if I'm feeling a little bit healthy, which is like a butter alternative, very similar texture. But olive oil and mayonnaise, like
Paul says mayonnaise works.
These are the times where I want to log off forever. Just forget that life exists.
I know this sounds gross and I would never do it with mayonnaise, but if I did do it with mayonnaise, I would probably do it with butter and mayonnaise. Like there's no scenario where grilled cheese gets made without butter.
I agree. I mean, yeah, I don't, I agree. But here's like what gets me, right? Well, I guess Cust isn't making the grilled cheese with mayonnaise. Did he say he makes it with mayonnaise as well, or just olive? Okay,
no, just olive.
Because if he's eating over the sink because he doesn't want to dirty a plate, but then he's going to put mayonnaise in a pan and have to wash that, like that's defies logic. So at least he's not doing that. Which, I mean, that would be hypocritical, right? If that's the case.
Oh, that wouldn't stop him though.
Right, but like the logic just wouldn't be there.
Yeah, but you're thinking about this logically. You cannot do that in this situation.
So like I'm like both my parents are or one of my mother's born in Italy. My father came over from Italy when he was very young. We use olive oil to cook for pretty much everything. It's like a starting point, but I would still never consider olive oil for grilled cheese sandwich. Like that's how ingrained the butter is in. Like it would honestly, even if I cooked a grilled cheese sandwich in front of my parents with using olive oil in the pan, they would look at me with so much confusion, even though they only cook with olive oil. Like that's how weird this is. I really have to point out how weird this is. And there's like 5% of the people on that vote use olive oil. Who are these people? But there'll probably be like a day in a couple weeks where it's, National Cook Your Grilled Cheese with Olive Oil Day, and these people will come together and celebrate.
That will do it on the Week 12 Best Bet Show. Cam says he shall be healthy enough to return next week, but I would love to thank Geoff Fienberg for filling in. Thanks, dude.
No problem. And I got to say this. I tuned into Cam late last night. He looked beaten down. I knew I was going to be pinch hitting today. Like I could even show you a screen grab or two.
I think
he was so weathered. He was on so late with Morency last night.
It's a good thing he's not. Like I already listen. I'll give you like my weekly preparation for Pat's show is I always come up with like 2 or 3 points that I know are going to trigger Cam, and I really try to fit those in at some point. And I had a lot of Thanksgiving stuff ready that I knew he was going to get real fired up about, but he did look beat up last night. And yeah, Geoff, like I can't like Geoff, I can talk shit about the Chargers, but Geoff knows that I kind of like the Chargers. So it's not real. It's not coming. But when I say something that gets Cam fired up, he knows I might be joking, but it still rattles him to his core. And today would have been a bad morning for him. Like if he was tired, not feeling well, and had to defend himself on some of the Thanksgiving stuff, it would have been a pretty bad show, I think. So
well, everyone's lost because it probably would have been fantastic.
Well, just save it for next week. It's not like listen, it's my
show. I will.
Like
these are ongoing points.
Yeah,
these are, and I can hit on the same stuff over again, and he will forget we've talked about it. And
you don't need to make fun of Cam for like a bad bet or like, no, that's not what Pizzola has. He's not here for that. He's got like evergreen ammo.
Yes, like listen, I want to make the shows as entertaining as possible. The thing is, most of the shows, I don't even have to use anything that I've come up with beforehand because he says something so outlandish on air that like we kind of catch him in it, and then he's forced to defend himself on the spot, and he gets very rattled. Like the episode where he was talking about how horses aren't animals. Like you can't prep for that, right? Like if somebody says to you a horse isn't an animal, you got to. You make sure you heard it correctly first, but then you got to go in on that. You can't just let them get away with it. But he tried to double down. He's like, no, it's not an animal. What was it? Is it equine? It's an equine. It's not an animal. That was an interesting one. I'll tell you that.
Geoff, you got anything going on this weekend?
No, okay. I don't.
No odds checker, nothing like that.
No, listen, there's no golf this week. So honestly, kind of a quiet week for me. And I don't know, hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
All right. Pizzola, are you doing your Sunday stream?
I am doing my Sunday stream. You can check it out 11 a.m. Eastern time. Follow me on Twitter at Rob Pizzola. It's posted there. And for anyone who wants to get better at sports betting, download BetStamp wherever you download your apps. Check it out, betstamp.app. There's actually a great feature now for those who use DraftKings already. We have a feature called BetLink. You place your bets at DraftKings, it actually automatically pulls your bets in from DraftKings into the BetStamp app to track them for you, gives you some advice on where you can improve, where you're going wrong. So please check out BetStamp. I'm very confident it will make you a better bettor.
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. That was the show. Rate, review, and subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast if you want to get into a draw for one of 3 $100 giveaways, which Geoff and I will be giving out on next Wednesday's show. Again, Apple Podcast, 5-star review, something you enjoy, Twitter handle or email address, and boom, you're in that draw. Playing the Listeners League as well on DraftKings. Link is down in the description. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!